I am doing that thing again where I go. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph, and if you're new here, I'm Steph. So today's episode of Read It Down is something I've been super excited to film. So this first one is the fight for the top. So technically there are 3 people out of the 11 who got very similar scores. 2 of them got the same score, and then one of them actually got like 0.5 higher. So I was like, even though technically one of them is the clear winner because they got a 0.5 more than everybody else, why not make them fight for the top? Let's see who the real winner is in the end. It's pretty easy to figure out who's in the top 3 just based on the rankings if you've been watching the videos. But we have Erin from Booked and Busy. She is technically number 1. She is the one who got the 0.5 higher than everybody else. So Erin picked Assassin's Apprentice, and if you watched her video, then you will know that I read the Assassin's Apprentice and subsequently finished the entire Farseer trilogy in that video. I'm pretty sure I read the Farseer trilogy within a week. Maybe. That series destroyed me. It was the beginning of my love for Robin Hobb. And if you've been here post my love for Robin Hobb, you can thank Erin completely for that. I am now almost 10 books deep into Robin Hobb, and it's been a journey. So while that series is like a 5-star series for me just based on how attached I got to the characters and this world, Assassin's Apprentice is actually a 4.5 stars for me. So that's how Erin got a 0.5 higher than everybody else. But I kind of joked in that video and was like, obviously she won Read It Down because I read an entire series because of just one book she picked. She also picked The Traveling Cat Chronicles, which I gave 5 stars. It was very short and very sad, and I cried. So I gave that one 5 stars, which had Erin with a 4.5 and a 5 stars. So she was number 1. So number 2 and number 3 are technically tied, and that's Yasmin from Yasmin Be Readin' and Robin from Robin Reads. They both had a 4 and a 5 stars. Yasmin was the first person to ever do Read It Down, and she ended up giving me the chonkiest books out of everybody throughout the entirety of the series. She was probably the meanest to me. Obviously, I really enjoyed the picks. So she ended up picking Sword of Kaigan, which is a standalone fantasy novel, and I gave it 5 glowing stars. It was one of my favorite books of the year. I ended up reading it at the end of December, so it did make it onto my favorite books of 2021. We buddy read it together. We were literally sobbing in the DMs. It was a really funny time, especially because I was only a few months into my new job. And I remember I was on my break. Mistakenly, I read Sword of Kaigan while on my break, crying. I'm pretty sure if my coworkers were a little more comfortable with me at the time, they would have been like, are you okay? But I used to hide a lot in the beginning of working at my job that I'm at currently because I just didn't want anybody to talk to me. I don't think much has changed. Yeah, much hasn't really changed. And Yasmin also picked The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This big ass book, okay, that was a journey. I read that and I gotta be honest, I really loved it, which I was surprised because I have mixed feelings about Mistborn, which is also by Brandon Sanderson and is probably one of his most highly read and loved series. So I was nervous going into it, but I ended up giving it a 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I was really into the world. I was surprised at how accessible it was. So that gave Yasmin a 5-star and a 4-star, which put her 0.5 under Erin. And then we have Robin, who was probably one of the more kind people to me because she picked fairly short and fast reads. So Robin picked Homegoing, which was a 5-star read for me. This is a literary fiction, so it was a not shocking, but kind of shocking 5-star read because I'm very hit or miss with literary fiction, but this one just really worked for me. Apparently, I really like vignettes because this is very much told in vignettes. So I gave it a 5 stars. I really loved it. And then she picked Arusha and The End of Time, which I gave 5 stars. And this one I was nervous about because I don't really read a lot of middle grade, but I ended up loving this, which shouldn't have been a surprise because Roshani Chachki has such fun writing, but I think it lends itself so well to middle grade. So this ended up being a 4 stars for me, and I found a middle grade series that I would totally continue. I don't really have a prediction as to what people will pick in this specific round. but I do have predictions about tactics, because I think Erin is gonna have the tactic of picking something that she knows I'm already loving, right? And this isn't against the rules. It doesn't make it less fun. I think it's gonna be pretty interesting to see how people go about picking me books, right? Because I feel like Erin is gonna be a strategy player. She has a strategy and she's gonna stick to it. So it makes me think that I'm probably gonna have another Robin Hobb or another Brandon Sanderson, since I really enjoyed Brandon Sanderson, something like that. I feel like she's gonna have a strategy. Yasmin, I feel, is a wild card, because I feel like since we had such a successful buddy read about a book that we kind of didn't know anything about except that people liked it and we both gave it 5 stars, that she's gonna like try to pick something that we can buddy read. So my thought is she's gonna pick something she hasn't even read. She's really gonna leave it up to chance. Because even in the last selections, she only picked 1 book that she had read. Otherwise, I feel like she's gonna pick a series that she loves and wants me to read, like the start of a series that she loves and wants me to read, which makes me think that I will finally be reading Joe Abercrombie, because she loves that series. So those are my thoughts for her. Robin, I don't even know. I don't know. I feel like she's gonna try another literary fiction because it worked. I feel like Robin is gonna pick something that she loved. I feel like she's gonna pick a book that she loved that she would recommend to me, you know, because that's kind of how it happened last time. She picked 2 books that she loved, and that she was basically just like, hey, I loved these and I hope that you love them too, and they seem like something you would probably possibly like. So maybe she's gonna do that strategy again. It makes sense. So basically the way this is gonna work is that as soon as videos come in, I'm going to view them with y'all, and then I'll just start reading those books. So I haven't gotten any videos yet, so I will be checking back in with you as soon as I get the first video. So it's me out here always looking my best. I got a video. So Yasmin just sent me her video about the book she's picking. I'm also very nervous because I'm convinced that everybody's gonna pick big books again. So is this gonna see the light of day in December? I don't really know.
Hi. My name's Yasmin from Yasmin Be Reading. I have made it to the final round of Steph's Read It Down, and to those of you who did not make it this far, so I get to pick a book that Steph can read and potentially win, maybe. So the book I want to choose is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is a sci-fi book, and that's about all I know about it. I literally don't know anything, but I just have a feeling that it'll be really good, and I think, Steph, we should buddy read this. I'm basically gambling, but I don't know, I just have a feeling. The only thing I know about it is it's set in space and there's a big twist. So that's all the information I have. Steph, I hope you enjoy it. Yeah.
She did. She did. She did. She picked a big book. I think that book is over 400 pages, possibly over 500 pages. I'm back and I have the book and I've been breathing heavy, mind your business. I've never seen such a small acknowledgement. It's just this page. Andy was like, I have myself to thank for this book. I randomly bought this on a whim. I don't even remember. We were at a used bookstore, and this used bookstore happens to have like a small section of new books. And I, for some reason, had seen a bunch of people talking about it. I think Kayla from Books and Lala, Gabby from Gabby Reads, I think it was like her favorite book of last year. I've just been seeing really great things. And then my partner also read the arc of this and loved it. But I have no interest in Andy Weir's other books. That's why it's funny that I bought this. But I don't I don't know anything about this either. Mainly because people say to go into it not really knowing a lot, except that it's set in space. Andy Weir does all sci-fi novels, and I think they're always set in space. And just like Yasmin said, I know that there's like a really big twist. That's why people say to go in without knowing anything about it. So I'm reading Project Hail Mary, as you know, and I'm almost done. I'm 308 pages into it. I'm really liking this book. I will say the one thing that's like super confusing is how quickly our character has caught on to this specific thing that he's encountering. Like, it seems unrealistic, but I also am far from a PhD student in any type of science. So maybe that's just me. But that being said, I'm actually really liking this. I spent a lot of time thinking about how insignificant I am as a human being in comparison to the larger, greater, vast world and universe, and like what else is out there that we don't even know about and what's in our oceans. And like, I spiral, and this book definitely makes me want to spiral. It's hard to talk about the plot of this, which I know you've probably heard a million times because this book was all over BookTube last year and this year. And one of the things that people say is there's kind of like a twist in here that if you even really talk about it, then it gives away part of this book, which I agree. Like, I think you could guess what potentially is going on here or going to go on here, but it's nicer to find out yourself. But basically this has our main character waking up and he is experiencing a little bit of amnesia because he thinks he's been placed in a medically induced coma, and all he knows is he's in space and there are two bodies next to him that may or may not be alive, and he's just trying to figure out why he's there and who he is. He can't even remember his own name. And so this whole narrative is him having flashbacks to the past, telling you the story of how he got to this point where he's in space, waking up from this probably medically induced coma. And so things are happening in a current plot line, and then you're obviously getting the backstory as well. So it goes back and forth. I've been listening to the audiobook because I actually was told that the audiobook's a really good experience. And while I agree with that, I very much agree that the narrator is amazing. I've really loved it so far. Distinguishing between the past and the present does take a minute because it'll like pause and then it'll go to like a past chapter. It doesn't say past. It basically happens when there's a present moment that triggers something in his memory and you go to the past. I wouldn't say I completely get confused because I've caught on to the fact that there's usually a pause, but it sometimes stops mid-sentence in the present for you to go to the past. And that was a little bit jarring when I was first reading this. But it's funny because more recently, for some reason, I've been seeing this book be reviewed in a lot of different vlogs, like within the last week while I'm reading it, which is funny how that happens. And a lot of people have been talking about The Martian and how they really liked The Martian. For some reason, I just didn't have any interest in it. But now that people have been talking about how good The Martian is, but more people have been talking about The Martian while talking about Project Hail Mary. And I know that The Martian is definitely his most beloved book, and that if it is called Artemis, is not very well loved. So now I'm slightly more interested in The Martian because this is the type of sci-fi that I can totally get behind. I'm not a big sci-fi person. Obviously, I've said it a million times. It's just because a lot of times it goes over my head and I feel like I'm missing chunks of the story because I don't fully grasp the scientific portions of it. And then it just makes me feel stupid and it's just not an enjoyable experience. But in this, even though I'm not fully understanding the scientific jargon that's happening in here, you fully understand the story. Like, your understanding of the science in here has no bearing on if you understand what's happening in the story and where the story is potentially going. I also really like that there's so much human emotion in here because sometimes I feel personally that sci-fi can be very clinical, and I feel like this has so much human emotion in it where the main character is like crying at points in time, not even realizing or register that he's crying until he feels like the tears or the warmth on his face, and he's like, oh, I'm crying. I'm going through an existential crisis right now. And I just really love how that plays such a huge role in here, this loneliness of being in space and how you don't even know why you're there. Just, I can't even imagine. Like, that is nightmare inducing for me. But space in general is like a nightmare for me. Space in the ocean, these vast places that we have no real understanding of completely. I don't want anything to do with it. That's pretty much why I don't read sci-fi. But anyway, I have like a little over 100 pages left. So I'll probably be able to finish that at work, and then I will update you more likely tomorrow because I get off late today. I just ran up the stairs and then down the stairs, so I'm out of breath. I'm also just like so unfit to be a human. I just got home from work and I'm just like, I haven't really talked about it at all, but by the time this video goes up, it will already be announced. I'm so fucking nervous about it, but I'm starting a Patreon and I've been working on all of the details about it for the last like 3 months. And I'm just feeling, especially in the last like couple of weeks, such imposter syndrome. Today it peaked. It's at its peak. So I'm feeling really shitty about it. And I'm like, should I even do this? I think a lot of times I just feel like a nobody on here. And then like, you know, I finished this. And I've already said, like, I have a very big fear of space and the ocean, but space particularly just reminds me of how little and insignificant I am. But yeah, I finished Project Hail Mary. As you know, I'm not a space girly. I don't usually love things set in space. I don't usually love space operas. I dabble here and there to try to see if I can find things that I love. And so far, what I have learned is the sci-fi that I really like, well, the sci-fi that's specifically set in space that I really like is cozy sci-fi. So think Becky Chambers, you know? Becky Chamby really does it for me. And that's the kind of sci-fi I like. And I feel like Andy Weir does it too. It's a bit different from what I've heard. I actually haven't read or watched The Martian, but I kind of know what the plot is. His are more like a singular person having to save the world or like survive in space, and the world has ended or is on the brink of ending because of climate change or things like that. And that's what's happening here in Project Hail Mary. I kind of gave you a little bit of a synopsis, but I don't even think I mentioned that the reason he is in space, which you find out very early on, is because the sun is getting dimmer and it's happening at such a rapid pace that it would bring on an ice age within the next like 20 years. So that's like the major theme in here, is saving the earth. But there's like a lot more that happens, and it definitely is an emotional roller coaster. But I did really like the end. It was a pretty satisfying end. It just made me, I don't want to say spiral because then that seems bad, but it did make me think a lot about just what we're facing climate wise. And I think this is an interesting take on climate change and the necessity to do something extreme to save the earth. But I think I also said it in my last update, the science in here, who knows? Couldn't tell you what he was talking about. The scientific jargon in here, literally gibberish. I feel like the scientific stuff doesn't fully matter for you to grasp the story, but it does kind of make it, like, in my opinion, a little less enjoyable, because I feel like there were parts of this book, specifically the middle, where it kind of lulled for me, because I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're calculating right now. I'm like that woman in that meme with all the numbers around her. But also I had the added benefit of buddy reading it with Yasmin, which was what we did in the first Read It Down that I ever did, and I really loved that experience. So it was really fun to buddy read this book with her as well. We had another successful buddy read. Hello, so Robin just sent me her video, so let's see what she picked.
Hey Steph, thank you. I'm so honored to be in the top 3 and battling for the #1 position of this tournament of sorts. I never thought I would be here, ever. And having to pick one book was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Just one. Did I pick something that I just wanted you to read just so that you could review it and then let me know whether I should read it? Did I want to pick something that I knew that you wouldn't enjoy, but I wanted you to read anyway because I just want you to read? Do I pick something big, small, in between? The possibilities were endless, but I settled on something. But I come to you with something part ghost story, part family drama, all of it wrapped in beautiful, luscious writing. And that is Sing Unburied Sing by Jessamine Ward. First of all, it's under 300 pages, so short. Second of all, she is a fantastic writer, and I feel like people don't talk about her enough. And third of all, this is just a great story overall. You're in the midst of this family dealing with a loss, and you're seeing it all through this one boy's eyes, and he's trying to make sense of the world because he's like, I don't know, 14 or something. He's a teenager. His emotions are already all over the place, and now he's got this on top of it. What starts off as a family road trip of sorts turns into an emotional history telling and bonding experience. Will I come out on top? To be determined. But that's not really my goal here. Would it be nice? Sure, okay. But I really just want you to have a fantastic time with this. Happy reading.
This is exciting because I've only read one other Jesmyn Ward, no, two, because I read her little speech that she gave to a graduating college class. I don't know if it was her college class because she does teach college. I don't know if it was at her college or at a different college, but I read that speech and it was beautiful. And then I read The Men We Reap, which is her memoir, and that was also beautiful. She definitely can string a sentence together. She's a beautiful writer. So I'm really looking forward to this. This is also fun because I feel like Erin, Yasmin, and Robin are all going to pick different genres. I just have a feeling. I mean, we already know Yasmin's pick. Good morning. I haven't filmed in here in a while. I finished Sing and Buried Sing. I know I didn't give you a halfway update, but this book is less than 300 pages, so I ended up just reading it all in one sitting. I think it's funny how these small literary fiction books, the ones that are like less than 300 pages, always pack the biggest punch for me. I'm really glad that I read it, and what I'd like to do is read all three of the books in this companion series and see how it all connects and see what's going on with all of these characters. This primarily follows our main character Jojo, but it also ends up having the perspective of his mom Leonie, and they have a really complicated relationship because Leonie is a drug addict and she has chosen drugs and Jojo's dad Michael over him and his sister Kayla time and time again. And so because of her decisions, Leonie's parents have basically raised Jojo and Kayla, but Jojo has taken on more of a father role for Kayla. Kayla and Jojo have a very sweet relationship and he takes his responsibility with his sister very seriously, and I just loved the way that Jesmyn describes their relationship and the way that they interact with each other. There are full-on paragraphs of the way that Jojo handles Kayla, like physically handles Kayla, and the tenderness behind everything that he does for her. But despite the fact that Leonie is not really in their life, she decides upon Michael getting released from prison that she wants to take the kids on a road trip to pick him up from the prison and reunite their family. And she kind of believes that this is going to be the way that she has this perfect family. And that's when her perspective gets introduced, and you kind of get both sides of the story here, because obviously you've spent the majority of the book with Jojo. I don't think it's till the halfway point that you start to get Leonie's perspective. By that time, you've already spent a lot of time with Jojo, and you've gotten his feelings about his mom and his mom's addiction and what that has meant for him and his sister. But then you get Leonie's perspective, and at that point, I was like, I don't really care to know her perspective. But when you start to get it, not that it excuses anything about her behavior and her choices, but you start to understand why she's made the decisions that she's made and how it's led her to where she's at currently. But it doesn't excuse anything. It just makes things really come together. So I am glad that we got her perspective. Along this road trip, you start to realize that Leonie and Jojo can see ghosts. And it's not in the like spooky, scary skeleton kind of way where they see ghosts. It's more of like there's so much intergenerational trauma that they're facing as a family and that they're reconciling with, that these ghosts are from the past. So like arguably they are real ghosts and arguably they're metaphorical ghosts. This is also a story of healing, mainly for Jojo. I mean, I think the whole family heals in their own ways, but that doesn't necessarily mean that things change the way that you kind of hope that they're going to change. But there is a level of healing and I think resigning to certain things in here about certain people. Also, Jojo is like one of my favorite literary characters, I feel, just because he's so tender and so sweet. So yeah, this was a solid 4 stars for me. I really, really loved the writing style. I liked the way the story ended up being told. There's so much detail in the writing, but sometimes I do think that takes away a little bit from the story, the amount of detail, but I still really appreciated it. I'm looking forward to reading the other 2 in this companion series and seeing how it all connects. I'm just so curious if that will make this an even more powerful read once you know everybody's stories and how this all culminates. Erin has officially sent me her video of what she's picking. So we are now gonna find out if she went with strategy or if she's gonna surprise me.
Hello, my darling girl. I am here to defend my crown as the queen of Read It Down. And I decided to go with a bit of a sure thing. I think that you and I bonded over our love for this series and our love for these characters this year. and I wanted to, you know, get you to read what I know will be one of your favorite books of the year, because I just know you like that. I know your taste very well, I think. And this thing that we've been wanting and waiting for, it finally happens in this book. So I am recommending that you read for the redemption final battle of Read It Down, Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. This is the third and final book in the Tawny Man trilogy. Now, I know that you have not read Golden Fool. So am I giving you a little extra homework? Yeah, so you gotta read the Golden Fool first. But I think you're gonna enjoy it. And like, you know, do I have to hit you over the head with a good time? I don't think I do. Fool's Fate, the thing that we've been waiting for in those notes we've been sending each other, it happens in here. There are some things in Golden Fool that are gonna make you angry, okay? I know that. I'm here for you. If you want to scream in my messages, you can. But this book, the things that Robin Hobb does with these two characters in their relationship and their friendship and the love and the bond that they have with one another is just unmatched. I think about the scenes in this book all the time. Like, the emotional devastation is at an all-time high, as well as there are so many connections to the Life Ship Traders trilogy, which I know we both enjoyed so much. So I really think you're gonna love this, and that's another series that's finished this year, and that just paves the way for you to marathon the Fitz and the Fool trilogy and the Rainwall Chronicles next year. So I really hope that you enjoy your time with Fitz and the Fool as much as I did, and I hope that I do maintain my crown as the queen of Read It Down, and that you enjoy everything that you're reading for this video. Bye.
How did I know she would pick strategy? I feel like she's picking my happiness and my enjoyment levels too. Like, she said put you first, and I said thank you, but also, am I gonna be thankful at the end of it? I don't really know. I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. And I have to read an extra book. It's actually not a big deal for me. I was talking to my partner about this. When it comes to Robin Hobb, it's funny when people say like, oh, she's really slow and the books are always really big and she takes her time. And that's not true. But for me, it's just so easy to literally get through 300 pages in a day of Robin Hobb's world, because I get so immersed into it. I get so attached to the characters. She spends so much time with character. And I think that's why Robin Hobb doesn't work for everybody, which also, like, not every author who's prolific and has a big following is going to work for everybody anyway. But I think the other thing is she spends so much time with characters, and she gives so much room to her characters for their development, for their grief, for their sadness, for, I was about to say happiness, but that is a bold-faced lie. Anyway, she gives a lot to her characters, but I just don't think the plot matters as much as what's happening with characters and the character dynamics and the relationships that they're forming. But especially, obviously I've only read the first book in the Tawny Man trilogy so far, about to finish the trilogy though. And the thing for me that like made me not want to move on with the trilogy right away is because Fitz, you're back with Fitz. It's like 16 years later, and he is so in his feels, and he's so deeply sad, and you feel that, and it just keeps getting sad. It's very real. It's very raw. It's very much that this person who puts everyone before himself and has had to sacrifice so much of his life for the crown, even though he's only been treated like a tool for these people who are his family. Yeah, it's deeply sad. There are some characters that were really close with him at one point in time, and you get to hear his feelings on that and about those relationships, and it was a very sad time, and the ending really broke me. So I'm really looking forward to the rest. Hello, good morning. I've had a really bad headache for the last 2 days, so I'm hoping today's a little bit better, but I'm gonna make a matcha right now, and I thought I would update you on Golden Fool, because at first I was like, I'm not gonna update about this book since it's technically not the one that Erin picked, but I'm gonna. even though I can't really say that much on it. So I'm on Golden Fool, which is the second book in the Tawny Man trilogy. So Erin chose Fool's Fate, which is the third and last book in this Tawny Man trilogy. And the other reason I kind of wasn't updating in the first half was because I wasn't loving the first half of this book as much as I loved the first book in this trilogy. And it's not to say that I wasn't liking it. Like, the first book was a 5 stars and I was like, okay, this might be a 4 stars, which has happened with Robin Hobb. It's not like every book I've read from her is 5 stars. And if I'm correct, I've heard people say that this of the Fitz trilogies is the weakest of the trilogies, which was surprising to me, especially after reading the first book, because the first book to me was a 5 stars, and I felt like while it was a completely different tone than the other 2 trilogies in this world, it like hit me in a very unexpected way. Like, Robin Hobb has the monopoly on pain and suffering for sure. Fitz never gets a break, and I'm learning that in the second book. He really just doesn't get a break. Obviously, I love being in this world. I love being with Fitz, but there was something about the beginning of this book that I was like, wow, I'm not loving this. And it's always really easy for me to read Robin Hobb. Like, for whatever reason, I can get through 100, 200 pages easy in her books. It's just so compulsively readable, and the characters feel like my friends, like I know them. But I just think it's because Fitz is in this place that's really dark and lonely, and you can desperately feel that. I was feeling my feels with Fitz's feels, and it was really overwhelming. Anyway, I am now more than halfway. I think I only have a quarter of the book left, and I'm really getting into it. This still is like a 4-star read for me, I feel. I mean, I guess it really depends on the end of this book, but this feels like a 4 stars, which perfectly fine. That's bound to happen in a, what, 16, 17 book series. But basically, I've only been reading it for the last 2 days, and last night I had hit the halfway point, and that's when I was like really, really into it. So it's definitely getting better, and I'm really, really excited for the last book in this trilogy for a multitude of reasons. There's supposed to be some character dynamics that are shifting into ways that I think I'm not ready for. Like, I'm really excited about it. But yeah, it's Wednesday today. So my plan is I'm trying to finish this book this morning so that I can start the last book in the trilogy, which is Erin's actual pick, tonight, and then read it Thursday, finish it Friday, and this vlog will be done. I'm gonna finish making this matcha, read this book, finish it this morning. That's what we're manifesting. We're manifesting that I finish it this morning, and then I have to go to work. So that sucks. Not yesterday, but the day before, I ended up finishing Golden Fool, and I gave it a 4 stars. Like, I thought it was really great, but it wasn't as good as the first one for me. I was an emotional wreck through it all because that's just what Fitz and his whole storyline always does to me. But it definitely wasn't as good as the first one for me. There was a little bit lacking in it, which is so interesting because I am a second book lover, but that one it probably won't be my favorite book of that series, even though there were some really great moments in it. So while I get the 4 stars, that doesn't actually count for this video. That was just for me to get to Fool's Fate, which I didn't update you when I started it, but I'm almost done. I read all of this yesterday. I also think what contributes to that is how invested I am in everything that's going on, and especially Fitz's storyline. Like, I just have such a special place for Fitz in my heart. Yeah, I'm pretty much halfway. I'm a little over halfway through The Realm of the Elderlings, and I can tell you I made it here. I'm here in less than 6 months, I'm pretty sure. Real compulsively readable for me, okay? This one hurts. There's a lot of things coming together in this book that have been bothering me for I mean, ever since the end of the Farseer trilogy. There's a lot that happens in that last book that is still not resolved in this trilogy, and it's like coming to a head finally. It's a lot to take in, and I already know there's like a thing that's gonna happen in this book that's gonna break my heart. I don't really know. What are you doing, all this being weird? Anyway, there's like some stuff that's gonna happen with a few characters in here that I kind of already know is gonna happen. I don't know how it's gonna happen, but I already know it's gonna happen, and I'm just like not sure I'm prepared for it. I don't know if I'm mentally well. So what's funny is that this could potentially be 5 stars. Like, I'm definitely getting the vibes. I feel like the ending can really pull it through to 5 stars. But currently it's actually sitting at a 4 stars in reality. And so this is hilarious, right? Because everybody in this video has gotten a 4 stars at this point. So I've decided that to actually determine the winner, I'm going to have to call in Call Pile, which was created by G from Book Roast. It's another way to determine ratings. So it's like out of 10 instead of out of 5, and you like rate things individually. Let's be real, this is probably, you know, it's probably gonna be the winner. Olive always picks the moment that I'm filming to be the loudest that she could possibly be. Stop eating the cardboard. Don't breathe heavy at me. Stop eating it. God, you act like you don't get fed. You get fed twice a day. So sure, this will probably win, but I really just want to pull in Call Pile and see, you know, see how they actually rank. I know Gavin uses Call Pile a lot, and he currently has a video series where he like reads his best friend's favorite books, and if he doesn't like them or they get a really low rating, then he has to unsubscribe from them. So I know he uses Call Pile, so this is a really great opportunity to use Call Pile again, since I've been meaning to do that this year and I just haven't because I'm lazy. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I'll see you at the final countdown. I hate that I did that. Okay, I'm gonna go. Hi, I finished Fool's Fate. I feel so sad. I don't really know why, because it's not like, I mean, it's a sad ending, but it's not like the saddest ending. And from what I remember, this was supposed to be like the end. And she ended up continuing on in the world, which is funny because there was a recent announcement about how she wants to continue on in this world again. Just like really, I feel empty. I feel like a shell of a human right now after finishing this, because there's like some really great things and really sad things, and I think it's just one of those feelings of knowing this is coming to an end. I don't have a rating yet, and I don't have like all my thoughts together that are non-spoilery, so I'm gonna update tomorrow, and then we will do Call Pile tomorrow as well, so that we can like really determine all of the ratings. I'm eating some peppermint bark. I made some tea to cry into. It's time to talk about Fool's Fate. I'll be the first person to tell you that I love being dramatic about books that I love. I love it. Ask Erin. Very dramatic. But I'm actually not joking when I say I haven't been able to pick up a book for 2 days, because every time I pick up a book and try to read, all I can think about is the ending of Fool's Fate. I'm not kidding. The morning that I finished it, I felt so sad all day. Like, just genuinely very sad. So we'll just get into talking about Fool's Fate. If you know anything about Assassin's Apprentice, which is the very first book that starts off the realm of the Elderlings, then you may know Fitz Chivalry. Fitz is the main character of the Farseer trilogy, and you get to meet him when he is like 6 years old, and then by the end of the trilogy he's like 20. In the end of that trilogy there is a lot left open, and so the Tawny Man trilogy is 15 to 16 years after everything that happened in the Farseer trilogy. So in here you're seeing Fitz as an adult, and what we know about Fitz when we meet him in Assassin's Apprentice is that he is the bastard son of the king-in-waiting Chivalry, and when Chivalry finds out about his bastard son, he ends up leaving him in the hands of Birch, who is the beast master, stable master, but also his closest friend and confidant. So the king decides that instead of letting Fitz be raised without any ties to the family, he would take him in and make him an assassin for the crown, and basically trying to make it seem like by taking him in, he's claiming him, even though bastards are often really shamed in this society, and there's no limit of the amount of shame people heap on to Fitz. But the king is trying to make it seem like by making this decision, he's actually benefiting Fitz Chivalry's life. Arguably, that's probably not true. Based on the events of the first trilogy and going into this second trilogy, the one thing I can tell you without spoilers is that there is such an examination of Fitz's life, mental health, and how the decisions that other people have made throughout his entire life because of his status, and the fact that he has felt like he's had to put his life last because of his status, is overwhelmingly sad. It's overwhelmingly sad. I hear a lot of different things about Robin Hobb and this particular world, the Elderling world, and people either love it or hate it. I feel like you're not ambivalent about it, you love it or hate it. And I really think that's because Robin Hobb isn't here to give you this exciting, explosive plot. She's here to give you an examination of human nature, of emotions, complex relationships, and coming to terms with the relationships we have in our lives and how we have to view and navigate them, even if they're unhealthy, even if they're manipulative. Fitz especially is coming to terms with the fact that he's been a punching bag for so many people for so many years, because it's so easy to heap their problems and their insecurities and their issues all onto this one character. But also I feel like there is such an exploration of what friendship and what love means. There's an especially beautiful look into a friendship dynamic where their love is so deep and complex for one another. And it's funny because Erin and I talk about this a lot, about how friendship is so important in our lives. I really, really value friendships in my life, but that's a whole conversation for another time. Anyway, I feel like this trilogy really examined that even further than in the Farseer trilogy, and if anything, it's even like more depressing. And you're probably asking yourself, well, why do I keep doing this to myself if it's so sad and so depressing? It's because I'm so invested in Fitz and his happiness and his well-being, and like, I don't know, there's just something about Fitz chivalry and the Fool that I can't stay away from. I just love these two characters so deeply, but they've really impacted me. Like, I haven't been this impacted by characters in a really long time. So that all being said, obviously you would think that I would say this is a glowing 5 stars. It's not. This particular trilogy as a whole is probably a 4.5 for me, and I said that the Farseer trilogy is like a 5-star series for me. Star ratings are so stupid, right? Because I feel like this trilogy has impacted me more deeply than the Farseer trilogy, but the Farseer trilogy is what made me love this world, so that's why ratings are stupid. Because they're so just like, they mean nothing, right? What's a little messy, what's a little complicated is that I do think it's hard for me to separate all 3 of these books. I do want to use CallPile to really hash out the numbers, you know? So we're in a different spot right now because we're at my computer, and I'm going to do the CallPile ratings for the 3 books in this video so that we can get an actual overall rating for everything. I will say right now, just being like 2 or 3 days away from finishing Fool's Fate, Fool's Fate's probably gonna win this, because the more that I'm like sitting on it, the more it has emotionally impacted me. I am devastated, and I don't really know why. I mean, I do and I don't. Anyway, so I'm gonna say it right now. I do think that Fool's Fate's gonna win, but we're gonna do the CallPile. We're gonna do them in order. So we're gonna do Project Hail Mary first. And if you're not familiar with CallPile, it's a rating system that G from Book Roast came up with, where instead of just doing the 5-star rating, you're basing it off of 7 different categories. So those categories are characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, enjoyment. So there's 7 different categories that you rate out of 10, and so the entirety of it is out of 10, but she has it set up to where it does a mathematical equation for you to get the percentage, and so that overall rating out of 10 equates to high 5, just a solid 5, a low 5, etc., etc. Let's get into this. So we're gonna start with Project Hail Mary because that is the first book that I read for this vlog. So for characters, it's out of 10. I would give that a 7. The main character was fine, but I loved the secondary character a lot. Atmosphere, I would give that a 9. I feel like the atmosphere was a 9 because I definitely felt the anxiety that the characters were feeling. And I also don't love space-based books. I don't like things set in space very often. So for me to like be really into it, I'm gonna give it a 9. Writing. I think I would give it an 8 because I did think the writing was really funny and kept me intrigued. And like, obviously he sounded smart with his science logic. Plot. This one is a little bit harder for me. I was pretty invested in the plot, but the middle like kind of lulled for me. So we're gonna give that an 8 as well because I was definitely way more invested in the plot than I thought I would be, but it lulled for me. So intrigue, I guess I would give that a 7 because the science. Logic, I don't know. It's probably logical, but he could have also been spewing absolute bullshit at me and I would have been like, yeah, cool dude, your science is sciencing. I'll give it a 9 based on purely my ignorance. Enjoyment. I feel like it's between a 7 and an 8 because I did really enjoy it, but I did have lulls. Let's give it an 8. Why not? I was way more invested in it than I thought I would be. So that's like literally exactly an 8. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention is that it does convert your number into a star rating. So it shows you a star rating and it also shows you a star rating based on 0.5s, you know, half stars. So it's technically a 4.5 because I do give out half stars, which is shocking. Makes me want to reevaluate some things, but we're just gonna go with it. Okay? Okay, so next we have Sing Unburied Sing, which was Robin's pick. And this one I would give the characters a 9 because I really liked the characters. Atmosphere. I think I would give Atmosphere an 8. An 8 or a 9, but I think I'm gonna go with an 8. And the writing actually really played into the atmosphere, which is the second one. And I would give the writing a 9. Absolutely. Plot. Okay, so this is where I would have to give a lower number, I guess. I would give the plot a 6 or a 7. This book to me wasn't driven by a plot, it was driven by characters and like family dynamic. So I would give the plot a 7. Intrigue. That's hard too because I feel like it's also either a 7 or an 8. I think I'm also gonna give Intrigue a 7. Logic is a 9. Enjoyment. Okay, I would give Enjoyment a 7. Call Pile is doing nothing for me because this is also a 4.5. Okay, I can't believe Yasmin and Robin are literally tied again. Okay, let's go to Fool's Fate. So characters are 10. Like, please, that was easy. Atmosphere. I would give Atmosphere a 9 because I find it so easy to get into this world. I just love the feeling of being in this world and the dynamics of how this magic system works and the medieval stuff. I just really like it. The writing is always great. I'm gonna give it a 9. Plot. So plot and intrigue are where I was like, oh, this feels more like a 4 stars to me. Because as much as I say these books are really easy for me to get into and like I can easily read 300 pages of Robin Hobb because I'm so immersed into it, doesn't necessarily mean that the plot is doing that much for me. And I do feel like the plot in this is like a 7 or an 8. I would give it an 8. I actually have to change my mind. I think the plot is a 7. Because it was really interesting. It is. But plot is never really the important thing in a Robin Hobb book. It's all about characters. And I do think that some of this plot was just like, whatever. You know, it was a whatever thing. I was just here for the ride of what was happening with Fitz and the Fool. Intrigue will probably be an 8. I obviously have more intrigue into the characters and what's going on with those dynamics and like some of the plot as well, more than anything else. So it definitely would be higher than plot because that just makes sense to me since it's character driven. Logic, I guess it's an 8 or a 9. I'm gonna give it an 8 because like some of those characters had 0 logic. Enjoyment. Okay, this is where this gets tough for me. I would have easily put 7 or 8 here. But now that I've been away from it, and it's all I can think about, I realize that it might be a little higher. The problem is I have to really think individually about this book. And in some cases, I think I should go back and look at what I put down for the rest of these because I think I'm really basing it off of a series enjoyment. But is it fair to do that when these are individual books? I don't know. I'm gonna give it an 8. For enjoyment. Okay, so that actually makes this an 8.43, which also makes it a 4.5, but it's an 8.43. The other two are 8 exactly. So obviously Erin has the crown. She has kept the crown. So Fool's Fate is the winner. It got an 8.43 or a 4.5. And then Project Hail Mary got an exact 8, which is a 4. And then Sing and Buried Sing got an exact 8, which is a 4. Erin has won the 2022 Read It Down crown. But I mean, Yasmin and Robin, they were right there. Y'all are winners, but Erin, she played the long game. She had a strategy and she won. This was so fun. Read It Down has been such a fun experience for me, but getting the opportunity to have my friends on my channel for whatever reason is like my most favorite thing. I love incorporating friends on this channel. So I'm excited for next year. It's gonna be a little bit different, but I'm very excited. So congratulations, Erin. I love all 3 of these people so much, and yeah, if you've made it this far and you have nothing to say, leave a gold medal in the comments below, and I will talk to you next year. Bye.